and we want to endeavor on something or put our efforts or energy into something, we try to make this calculation of, is the effort going to be greater or lesser than the reward or the benefit that we get out of it?
On your journey to your next thing, there might be detours, and that's okay too.
We're all in a place now where we have earned some level of luxury to choose the next thing that we do solely because we want to do it for ourselves.
Gratitude is going to be the key piece from which you want to build if you want to see progress.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Happy and Human podcast. This is Dinesh Malwani, and as usual, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Seema and. Hey Seema, how are you?
Hello. I'm so excited to be back here with you, Dinesh, because it's been a minute since we've done a duo episode.
We have actually a great lineup of guests slated to come on in the next week or two. So those episodes will follow this one.
Dinesh, I remember back when I was practicing dentistry, and I was kind of feeling like, all right, I'm ready for the next thing. I'm ready to grow. And I know you've kind of been in a similar situation because you've tried so many things in life. You're not quote unquote just an attorney. So I thought maybe we could talk about that because I know our listeners are also like us, goal getters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, they've achieved a level of success, or they've achieved, they've climbed a corporate ladder, or they've sort of fulfilled what they've set out to, and maybe are in a place in life where, and I think this is a quote from something I recently heard, that they're looking for their next best thing. And I think it's a good idea. Let's talk about that. And I think we have a couple of insights and perspectives that will help you if you or someone is on this quest or feel this pull to do or find your next best thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, for no matter where you are on the spectrum, I think this episode's going to be a great one because there's always a phase, right? Like this part where you feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I want more. And then there's this period of time where you're like, I don't really know what that is. And then maybe you're at a point where you know what that next thing is, and you just haven't really stepped into that level of existence yet. So yeah. I think this is going to be a great episode, no matter where you're at on the spectrum. And let's get to it.
Yeah, let's do it. So one of the first things that I think we want to just get out of the way in the beginning is, when we talk about, this phrase, your next best thing, I would encourage taking the word best out of it, right? Because when you put the word best in there, we're almost in this all or nothing thinking that we go from where we're at and we're supposed to land at the final destination. Mm-hmm. And there's immense pressure on, well, frankly, it being the best thing, right? And so I would say the first thing to do is just think of it like Seema said, is that we're on this journey. It's on a continuum, and it's your next thing. Take the pressure that comes with having best in there, and let's just call it your next thing, whatever that might be, wherever that might take you. It's just next, and there may be something that comes after that. There may not be, but let's not load it down with the pressure of it having to be your best thing, your next best thing right out the gate. Right, Seema?
I agree. I mean, when you're starting something, it won't be your best. You are going to be a beginner. And so, I mean, take the podcast, for example. I actually went back and I listened to some of the first ones, and, we weren't experts, and we're still not experts, but you could see, like, what I'm celebrating is we showed up and we did it. And it's not, if we had never done that first episode, we wouldn't have been here after having interviewed so many amazing people, growing in such a deep and profound way, getting to know each other better, building on our friendship. Our families have now met and taken a vacation together. So many wonderful things. But it starts with it won't be your best, and that's okay.
Yeah. Wait, you go back and listen to the old episodes?
I happened to listen to one because, the one about being happy, happiness is a choice. Yeah. I just believe in it so much. I truly, truly believe happiness is a choice. And I was just kind of in a weird space, and I was like, you know what? Those people on that podcast I'm going to listen to them. And I thought we had some really great points, but definitely wound up celebrating all the growth that we had.
Well, I was getting a little worried because we're getting close to 5,000 episodes. And I was thinking that we had 5,000 people or people listening to our episodes. And I was worried that it might be you just listening to them over and over again. So I'm glad you said it's just one.
Just the one.
Just the one. But no, seriously, I do sometimes go back and listen to them, and part of why we were on Instagram and part of why we became coaches and part of why we do this podcast is because if you really want to learn something and make it part of your life, you have to commit to teaching it, right? And I think that the more we put ourselves out there and the more we embrace the things that we talk about, frankly, our lives get better. So it's so good to for me as well to go back and listen to what we talked about. Anyways, so it's not your next best thing; it's your next thing. We understand that whenever we start something new, we give ourselves permission to be beginners. But sometimes, Seema, it might not seem that the thing that we're drawn to makes a lot of sense for us, right? Let's come back to the podcast, for example. It takes a lot of time. It's something that neither of us needed in our lives, but we wanted to do it, and
Mm-hmm.
it might not make sense to a lot of people. What do you think about that? Should the next thing we do make sense to ourselves or to other people or both?
I would say it does not need to make sense at all, actually. When we are in alignment with our highest selves, our deepest wisdom, we function most of the day in the land of what would I say? Not stress, but just like logical, right? We get caught with what's logical. And when we spend too much time being logical, we miss those intuitive hits that really are meant to be breadcrumbs to our highest journey, to our next big thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, J.K. Rowling, she probably wasn't told that Harry Potter made a lot of sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous and fantastical and all of those things, but that doesn't make it less sensational. And I think she's given the world quite a gift in the land that she's created, right?
Yeah.
Just as an example, it doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
Um, but that's just my perspective. Dinesh, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I think of it slightly differently, but I think it's the same thing. Um, a lot of times when we want to endeavor on something or we want to put our efforts or energy into something, we try to make this calculation of is the effort going to be, um, greater or lesser than the reward or the benefit that we get out of it. And in that calculation, we're also looking for external reasons that other people would approve or we would approve or it would make logical sense with whatever framework we use to guide our life. But the reality is, if you want to do something, the only reason you need is the fact that you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason. And if you spend a lot of time looking for, hey, is this going to benefit me financially? Is this going to benefit me or am I going to get some sort of gain out of this? Uh, Too many times we're just bad at making that calculation and we're looking at one metric. You're looking at like the one financial metric or you're looking at the relationship metric or you're looking at a fun metric or whatever metric it is when it's much more complex than that. There's so many different metrics by which you can judge whether something is worth doing that it's not even worth doing that judgment. And it's to me at least, if you want to do something, just do it. Just do it because you can never connect the dots sort of looking forward accurately enough, but always looking backwards, you can see how it make perfect sense.
Yeah, Steve Jobs said the exact same thing in his address to, as commencement speech to Stanford students all those years ago. I think it was 2005. It will not make sense. And in fact, when you're waiting to have this conditional, like as you said, what am I going to get out of this? The paradigm of that scarcity mindset, like it's not the action that you're taking, but the intention behind the action, right? So if you're doing something only because you think that you're lacking and you want to get something out of it, essentially what you're creating from really a quantum physics sort of living. I'm reading this book called The Field by Lynn McTaggart, and it talks a lot about the science behind this. But essentially, what you're creating in the universe is this more of the same sort of situation. So if you sit there and you're like, well, I'm only going to do this if this conditionally makes sense, you're locking in a single pathway
Hmm.
of existence and outcome, and you become attached to that outcome. So much
Yeah.
so that when you become attached and it doesn't work out in the way that you want it to, now you've put yourself in this bucket of like, well, I failed at it. I suck at it. And, it's not my next best thing. It was just a mistake. I should have never done it.
Right.
Back to inaction, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to share an analogy, a sports analogy. And if you think back to probably the most celebrated athlete of our time is Michael Jordan. And he was at the very peak of his financial earnings, his athletic ability. The Chicago Bulls had just won 3 championships. And it made absolutely zero sense for him to leave this game of basketball and join I believe it was a minor league team, and learn how to play baseball
Mm.
well into his adult career, right?
Mhm.
And if you think about that, that made zero sense. And I think on the internet, somewhere on YouTube or something, there's a video where he talks about that. And I think the long and short of it is that it's easy to criticize someone who does that and says, "What were you thinking? Like, you left all that money, you are humiliating yourself. You should stick in your zone of genius, right?" There's a lot of these buzzwords out there, and that's fine. That's fine, but the effort was there, the learning was there, the desire to try something new was there. What about the metric of where that might inspire someone to leave a path that's not fulfilling them, or where they feel that they have reached the end of their rope and try something new? Are
Mhm.
we going to give credit to that metric of just inspiring someone that it's okay to start over,
Yeah,
right?
and how do you quantify that? You
You can't.
can't.
Yeah, you absolutely can't. And we have to take a step back. And if someone, it's we can obviously logically reason ourselves out of it that Michael Jordan had a lot of money, he had done a lot of things, he no longer needed to work to put food on the table. But just because someone has achieved that level of success doesn't necessarily make it easier for them to start over, right?
Right.
Um, there's a lot of additional considerations where someone might think that maybe he just got lucky at basketball and that he never really was a talented athlete, because if he was a talented athlete, he should be talented at every sport, or should be able to gifted at anything. So it doesn't necessarily make it easy for someone, easier than for you to start over, right?
Right. Right. It is, the point in life I think many people miss is it's not about achieving status. It's not about even arriving at a certain point. Um, it's about becoming the best version of yourself and uplifting others on your path to doing so, right? Like it's kind of this, I get better, I'm able to uplift other people then in turn invariably uplifts me, and it's an unending cycle of fulfillment and gratitude and joy, but it only starts when you take that first step. You do not need to wait for permission,
Right.
and oftentimes this lok kya kehenge, that whole
Mm.
South Asian, what will people say, it's it's not going to serve us if we're looking to actually be excellent, right? The
Mm.
lok kya kehenge is going to be great if you're trying to stay where you're at, trying to not cause a lot of waves. Continue to use that strategy. Absolutely. It's so effective.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
if you want to
Absolutely.
break free, it's just not the right tool.
I totally agree. And I was watching this YouTube clip of a comedian earlier. It was an Asian guy, and he was talking about why Asian parents push their kids to be doctors, right? And it was funny. And basically, he said that people tend to think they become doctors because they want to help people, but in the parents' mind, that's on the bottom of the list if it even ever makes the list.
Doesn't
But
the list.
but really, Asian parents or South Asian parents want to push their kids to be doctors because it is the fastest and surest way to two things: prestige and money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just finished the YouTube clip. It was hilarious, and he ends it with that. The funny thing is that it the hardest people to get to go to a doctor are Asian parents, right? Or
Yes.
South Asian parent. Imagine telling your dad or your mom, like, "Hey, you should go see a doctor. You should really go to get that checked out." They're like, "No, no, 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 no. But you should be a doctor,
Yeah,
right?"
absolutely. You should go. Yes, all the things.
Um,
That's funny. I never actually thought about that.
yeah,
Uh,
I'll text you that link. You got to
yeah,
watch it. It's pretty funny.
too good.
Um, but let's. So we've talked a little bit about esoteric, about the perspective, about your next thing, and coming back to Michael Jordan. Even if he would have said, "Hey, I'm really good at basketball. What's my next best thing?" I'm not sure he would have picked baseball, right? So
Mhm.
it really should be your next thing. And one of the most practical strategies that we can share is to take yourself out of the land of or that this idea that you should leave the thing, or if you want to leave the thing, right? Assuming you've decided to that you want to try something new, that you need to leave the thing that you're currently spending your time on and leap directly to the thing that's going to make sense for you, is going to be financially rewarding, it's going to be fulfilling, all those things. I think we need to divorce ourselves from that story and become citizens of the land of and, in that you can be the dentist and the coach. You can be the lawyer and the AI guy. You can be the stay-at-home mom and the YouTube influencer, right? You can start all these things. You can dabble in them. You can expose yourself to them. You can get friends that are doing these things, all without leaving where you're at right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember for those of you who didn't catch Nina Buksani's episode. She was the artist we had on not a few weeks ago, not but a few weeks ago. But I remember watching her, and she had her quote unquote day job, and she would paint. Her kids were little. I don't even know where or when she would find the energy and the capacity, but she would paint. And not all of it was stuff that she probably put on her walls, but I remember looking at what was on her walls then and what she's producing now. And it just started with the idea of living in the and, right? I am owning a business or doing whatever during my day job. I am a mother, I am a wife, and I'm going to add this identity of being an artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a powerful thing to be able to just add it and dabble and not put so much pressure on yourself to wholly identify as one thing.
Right.
Dinesh, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if our identities get wrapped up in that one thing, we essentially can create a little bit of a box for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I know that the arc of our episode here is perhaps leaving dentistry and becoming, a yoga teacher or something like that, right? But it doesn't have to be only applicable to a career change or a livelihood change. I mean, it could just be that you want to learn how to bake decorative cakes, right? Or for me, in my case, recently, I wanted to learn how to smoke meat. And so I bought a smoker. I follow a bunch of Instagram accounts that talk about smoking meat, and started having conversations with people around smoking meat. And to my surprise, there were more people in my network than I thought that smoked meat, right? And it was another point of connection. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember we were at our firm's summer party, and I was talking to someone's spouse, and I was talking about smoking meat, and he's like, "Oh, there we go." And next thing you know, we had this instant bond of connection. And you can be the lawyer that smokes meat, right? And you could be the yoga teacher that is also interested in vegan recipes.
You know, I think that this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier of if you lock in on, yeah, but smoking meat's not going to make me money.
Right.
Well, that's not even true
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
because for all you know, um, your next big case or big account or big client could be a direct result of the fact that they were able to connect with you on a human level, on a relatable level. And
Right.
without that skill set and that passion for smoking meat, maybe you would not have been able to connect with that person in a meaningful way such that that would have created that financial abundance for you. Who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely, and you make a good point. Even if you did want to make money off of smoking meat, right? I've got a property manager whose husband smokes meat out of a cart And I was telling her that, he could get on TikTok and then he can develop a spice line or a rub line. And next thing you know, he could be the next big thing, right?
Hmm.
But it all starts in one place. But, Seema, you said something that made me think of a thought. And the thought is that, you don't have to be great to start. And if you're listening to this podcast, there's a high likelihood that you've accomplished a certain level in your life and you've got a certain level of success in whatever field you've chosen. And for most of us, some of the decision that went into that field or that area that we have accomplished that success was based on external influences, whether it
Hmm.
was based on a suggestion or a parent or a desire to earn money or status, or there was some sort of external influence for at some component. But I think that we're all in a place now where we have earned some level of luxury to choose the next thing that we do solely because we want to do it for ourselves, right? And if that is baking decorative cakes or learning how to bowl or becoming a yoga teacher or becoming a coach or whatever it is, your next thing, whatever it is, maybe this is the time to stop and say, what do I want to do? And ask yourself that is this something I would just do for myself?
Hmm. I
Even if no
love
one,
that.
yeah, even if no one would listen to the podcast, even if no one would look at your Instagram account, even if no one would eat your cakes, even if no one would come cheer you as you learn how to play golf, would you do it for yourself? And if the answer is yes, maybe it's time to try it.
What I love about what you just shared there is this just goes back to gratitude.
Mhm.
First of all, I love that you recognize that this is a luxury. Guys, it doesn't have to be a source of stress like, oh, I got to find my next thing.
Mhm.
No. Um, what a gift. What an opportunity to be able to feel the draw, the invitation that there's more out there for you than what currently is. It's a
Absolutely.
luxury. It's such a luxury. And it's such, I love that you're infusing it with gratitude, Dinesh.
Yeah.
Like it's such a foundation. We've talked about this on previous episodes. We've talked about this with other guests. You and I have talked about this on our separate Instagram accounts as well.
Mhm.
Gratitude is going to be the key piece from which you want to build if you want to see progress.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Seema, if I wanted to start a gratitude practice, how do I do that?
So I think that, first of all, taking time to recognize what is doesn't mean it has to be a big thing, right? I want to encourage people to say, like, you can be thankful for the little things.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning. I feel the wool underneath my feet. I can see the sun. I can hear the air conditioner sort of going in the background. When we focus too much on yeah, but I'm not number one at my whatever law firm, or I didn't earn $1 million last year, we lose the beauty of and the power of the gratitude practice. So I would suggest taking, first of all, to do it consistently is really going to be your best idea, because it trains the brain to start rewiring and thinking. I have a whole gratitude practice outlined on my website, and I think it's a great resource on how to sit there and make a gratitude practice work for you, doing it consistently in a way that just fuels you, and it's habit stack it. You love
Yeah.
habit stacking, Dinesh, don't you?
Absolutely. I do. I do. And listeners and viewers, Seema is so locked in on this podcast episode that I'm going to ask the question again. Seema, what link would I go to if I wanted to start a gratitude practice?
You would go to drseemadesai.com/gratitude.
And what would I get there?
You would get your free guide on how to start a gratitude practice that works for you.
All right, there we go. There's a shameless plug for Seema's free
Shameless
guide
plug.
on her gratitude practice. But it's so funny. I asked you the question, and you had a terrific. You were so locked in on the listeners. I loved it.
I just want everyone, I just can't tell you guys how life changing gratitude is. And so,
Yeah,
guys, I hope you go over and grab your guide. And anyway, but going back to, we just got real off topic, but I think it's just an
yeah,
important pause. And
yeah.
I want to actually add something here too. On your journey to your next thing, there might be detours,
Hmm.
and that's okay too.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into our next practical tip. And that is wherever you are, whether you're looking for your next best thing or your next thing, or if you're completely content, you've got to make one decision that I think is actually a very critical decision. And that decision is to decide that you live in a friendly world and not a hostile world. And the genesis or the root of that comes from a quote by Albert Einstein, where I think he says the best decision you can make, or something like that, that you live in a friendly universe as opposed to a hostile universe. And I want to take just a minute, unpack that a little bit. When you decide that you live in a friendly world or a friendly universe, um, you're you're accepting that your energy and efforts will be received and rewarded by the people around you, and that you won't be ostracized for your energy and efforts in a certain endeavor,
Hmm.
and that the people around you are rooting for you, and
Hmm.
they want to see that you're successful. And when you live in a friendly universe, and when you decide that you live in a friendly universe, you'll tap into hope and optimism. And I think we've mentioned this before. Hope and optimism are like that voltage potential that inspires action. Because if take a step back, if you think about something, and let's say gardening, right? You want to talk
Hmm.
about gardening, and you decide that you want to plant carrots, but that there's no way it's going to grow. It's the dead of winter, the soil is terrible, there's ice all over, there's nowhere it's going to grow. You're not going to go out there and take the effort
Hmm.
to plant your carrots or whatever. You have to believe that your carrots will grow. You have to believe that the environment is conducive to growing something before you actually try to even grow it, put the seed in the ground, so to speak. That's actually a pretty good analogy, right? Put the seed in the ground. I think it's
Yeah.
appropriate, right?
Yeah.
And so the decision you need to make when you're embarking on this quest for your next thing is simply to decide that you live in a friendly world, not a hostile world. Not that
Hmm.
people will attack you for trying something, or that you'll be criticized, or that your efforts or energy will be unrewarded. What do you think
Hmm.
about that, Seema?
I think that those are wise words. When you and not to say that people won't criticize you, but again, the belief that there will people that will also encourage you, will also uplift you,
Hmm.
that's what we want to choose. That's the button we want to push,
Right,
right?
right.
The universe flows. It's in a state of flow. That's why anything that has really truly changed the world has come out of that flow state. It's out of almost seemingly left field. The iPhone is a great example of that. If you
Hmm.
20 years ago had told me there's this little device that everybody carries around and you can literally access anything, anywhere, anytime, and talk to your grandmother in Mumbai
Hmm.
just because for free, I would tell you you were crazy.
Yeah.
But those capabilities and abilities come from being in that state of flow. And if you choose to be in disbelief of that, essentially what you're creating is more friction,
Hmm.
which pushes that desire or the fulfillment of that vision even further away.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. And that I think that decision of deciding that you live in a friendly universe can serve us in so many different ways. Also, it's the root of, when we talk about gratitude, there's a little bit of that in there, that overall people are good. Overall, things will work out for you. Life is always happening for you, not to you. I think all of that is wrapped up in that decision that we live in a friendly universe.
Yeah. So Dinesh, what would you say? Because I've had people ask me this. What would you say to the people that are like, that's not true?
What's not true?
That the world isn't friendly, the universe isn't friendly, everything is hard. What would you
Oh,
say?
I don't have people like that in my life. No, I'm kidding. Uh, no, of course. Yeah, I think that a lot of people say that, and one of the things I would say is that from a from a narrow perspective, it can seem like things are not working your way, or that someone's out to attack you, or someone is out to get you. But when you zoom out, when you really zoom out and you take a look, you can see that everything that is, whether it's negative or positive, has in it a seed of opportunity. right? And we've
Hmm.
talked about the stallion story, right? What's
Yeah.
good or bad, we don't know. And one of the examples I like to use is about the organization MAD. We've talked about this, I believe, or
Right.
you've heard of it, right? It's the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And MAD is probably responsible for raising awareness around underage or kids driving drunk. And because of their awareness, they've probably saved a lot of lives. But the reality is, and feel free to Google it, how did MAD get started? It was by a mother who lost her kid to drunk driving. And in the moment, and no one's going to dispute that that is a terrible tragedy. But in that tragedy was the seed of what became MAD, which raises awareness and probably has saved countless lives. So, I'm not going to argue that bad things don't happen. Bad things do happen. But just because that they happen doesn't mean that there isn't a seed of growth or opportunity or a learning or a lesson or some positive that can come from it, right?
Hmm.
Like, I know it's cliche that every cloud has a silver lining, but it's a cliche because it's true, right? The
Right.
cloud might be there and the cloud will block out the sun and the cloud will rain on your parade, but there is a silver lining. You just have to look for it,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. And I would even add like that the thought of it's not friendly, it's not collaborative, it's not
Mm-hmm.
it's just competition, dog eat dog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that is what's keeping you locked in
Right,
to the delusion
right,
that it is so.
right. And that's an important point, Seema. I think that when bad things happen or we feel that tragedy happens, if we choose to look at it like, man, the world sucks, my life sucks, it's just always like I can't catch a break, right? Good guys finish last. That's one way, but that's such a disempowering way to go through life. Like it's such an energy sucking way to go through life.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to try your best to look at the empowering way, because that's such a better way to approach the things that happen to us. Because while we can't control the things that happen to us, and bad things will happen to us, we can control how we respond and we can control what our experience is of life.
Hmm.
And I think that's such an important thing to maintain our hope and maintain our optimism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you touched on competition and collaboration, Seema.
Hmm.
What if I'm someone and I'm thinking about my next thing and I look at it and those thoughts go through my head of, well, I could never do that, or that's not for me, or um, they're already doing that. Let's say someone wants to start a podcast and they're listening to this, like, man, Dinesh and Seema already took my idea. They stole it and they have this Happy and Human podcast. And oh, well, I guess it's been done. What do you say?
Yeah. Don't bother. No, just kidding. Um,
We are edgy today, aren't we? Well, both of us. We're it's we're just edgy today.
we're just edgy.
Yeah.
No, honestly, truly, we are not doing anything revolutionary. We're not doing anything that hasn't already been said or done, right?
Yeah.
But no one can do it the way that you can. There are always going to be um, what I refer to as inner guard thoughts, like reasons that are going to keep you stuck in the status quo,
Hmm.
rooted in like keeping you safe, right? Because if you don't go out and try something new, you can't fail.
Right.
So it's easy to say I'm too old, it's too hard, other people are doing it. Um, but going back to what you just touched on, both beliefs are true.
Yeah.
I am too old. Okay, fine. It's just a matter of what are you trying to accomplish? Are you actually trying to get to that next level or your next thing?
Yeah.
If so, then this strategy of thinking
Hmm.
of I'm too old, so I'm just going to stop, or other people have already done it, so I'm not going to. If your goal is to get to the next thing, then that strategy is not going to be the right one to get you there.
Right. Right. And was it Henry Ford? I think Henry Ford had the quote that said, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right."
You're
Something
right.
like that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably paraphrasing it, but you understand what I'm saying. And I think that, it's cliche, it's trite. I understand, but it's true as well, right? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I think you need to go back to what we said earlier, that are you doing it for the right reasons?
Hmm.
Are you doing it for yourself? And, you know, recognizing that just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that has any bearing on whether you can do it or not, right? I mean,
Hmm.
for God's sakes, med schools pump out new doctors every year. Law schools make new lawyers every day.
Right.
Um, why would you think that the thing that you want to do is taken or has been done?
Right. You're cutting off, again, going back to the flow of the universe, that highest point of creativity. If you tell yourself it's already been done,
Right,
you know, the computer was already invented. That didn't stop Apple from inventing the iPad, the
right,
iPhone.
right,
You know, those are all computers too.
right,
We already had cars. Why would Elon Musk go and take his tech software and channel it into a vehicle?
right.
I, there's already electric vehicles out there. Why did Rivian make a truck? Like, and yet there's so much demand for these products. So don't, if you're trying to get to that next best thing or the next thing, the fact that it's already been done
Mhm.
just validates the fact that maybe the world has a need for the purpose that you're trying to serve. And you now get to go out and figure out how to make it yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I have an analogy, but I want to share a funny story first. Whenever we go to a foreign country, it's kind of a running joke. We always have to eat at the Indian restaurant, right? A lot of Indians do that.
You
Maybe you guys do.
too.
Yeah, you too. And the analogy is that there are 1,000,001 recipes for chicken curry, right?
Yeah.
But the best one is your mom's,
Hmm.
right? And I think that that's true for anything that we want to do. That's our next thing. Is that your version is not yet out there. Your iteration is not yet out there, and doing it for yourself, doing it because you want to, is all that is required. And I think the final point, Seema, is that I think we want to impress upon everyone is that in your quest or your journey to get to the next thing or to try the next thing is a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Have you read Mindset, Carol Dweck's book, Seema?
I have not read the book.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And in fact, now I'm talking about it, I think I'll reread it. It's such a great book. Carol Dweck is a professor, and she did a bunch of research on fixed mindset versus growth mindset. And the first thing, though, when people hear growth mindset, is they think about a flexible mindset, which is, I'm open to new things, I'm willing to try new things. But that really, what Carol says, or Professor Dweck, I should say, I don't know Carol. Carol, if you're listening to this, we'd love to have you on here. But Professor Dweck, uh, a growth mindset isn't one where you're open, but it's one where you believe that you can improve. And so as you approach your next thing, in Professor Dweck's quote, in one world, effort is a bad thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
failure. It means you're not smart or talented. Because if you were, you wouldn't need effort. In
Mm-hmm.
the other world, effort is what makes you smart or talented. And I think that as you approach your next thing, the only thing that counts is the effort
Yeah.
and a belief that with effort, you will get better,
Hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Such a good quote.
And Seema, you went back to listening to some of our first episodes. Have we gotten better at podcasting?
I believe we have.
I hope so, because the effort is definitely there, right?
Definitely there. I think it's not only effort, but this kind of goes back to intention behind the effort. The
Yeah,
reason your mom's chicken curry is so good
yeah,
is because she has taken the effort to know exactly which spice level you like that chicken curry. She knows whether you like more or less of the gravy versus the meat. Like she knows all of those nuances. And because of that, it's effortless for her because it's coming from a place of love and devotion and service,
yeah,
right? That's why your mom's chicken curry is unparalleled.
right.
And that's why whatever it is that you create is your next thing.
Yeah,
If it's done with that truly that heart-centered, because I really want to, because I believe in it, it's going to be fantastic. And it doesn't matter whether the world will quote unquote reward you for it or not. Because
right.
in some way, shape, or form, you shifting into that level of existence within the universe is, you cannot quantitatively measure the value and the impact that that will have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's very difficult to measure that, to make that calculation. And so my perspective in life is to try a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And you never know which TV show you're going to like until you decide to go give it a shot. You never know what's going to be your favorite city until you go visit it. So try a bunch of things, lean into the land of and don't let the identity of your profession keep you in a box.
Start with gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude for what is, gratitude for what can be, and go from there. Make gratitude a foundational piece from which you live life. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead, subscribe, meet us in the comments, share with your network, because we're doing this for you, and we're doing this to make the world better for us and for our kids and everybody else. And so just help us get the word out there so we can make impact together.